Clarity on Fire, a podcast for people who know what they don't want out of their life and career, but aren't sure what they'd rather be doing.
In a world where it's easy to exist, but hard to feel alive, we, Kristen
and Rachel,
two certified life and career coaches, are here to help you cut through the information overload, get unstuck, and focus not just on how you can have a career you're passionate about, but how to create a whole life that feels fulfilling.
So join us here, where we serve up inspiration and down-to-earth wisdom in a way that only two best friends can.
We want you to experience the relief of knowing that, yes, you're allowed to want more out of your life and career.
And no, you don't have to wander through the dark anymore. Our job is to light the fire that shows you the way. Let's go. Hey.
Hello.
Well, here's something that you can learn about that I knew nothing about until we had this interview.
I have heard so much about human design, and at least in my brain, it feels so complicated that I tried to look into it and I didn't fully get it, and then I just stopped. But I want to understand this better. So I wish I could have been on this interview and talk to Sara myself, but I'm excited to to hear it and hear what you ended up asking her about, because this is a topic that multiple of my clients keep telling me, you have to look into human design. I'm like, I know. So we're doing it. We're finally doing it.
So human design is, it's kind of like a personality assessment, or, like a system, much like, not like, but in the same vein as the Enneagram. It also has roots in astrology. If you like personality type stuff, then you could totally get deep into human design. And she said one of the most common reactions is what you had, which is also what I experienced, which was when I started looking into it. I looked at my chart and it was so confusing that I was like, nope. And then I just walked away. So I try to get her to demystify it and really just do basic, like introduce us to this concept. And then of course, if you want more, then you can always check out Sara and like learn more from a trusted source. But I think you'll have fun learning about this because it is a different angle than, any of the other personality assessments. And it has its own interesting way of helping you understand yourself and your energy and how you make decisions and how you are motivated. Like there's a lot in here that is very valuable. So you want to read Sara's bio for us?
Yes. Okay. Sara Bacon is the co-founder of High Def Humans, a place for people to learn how to return to the most vibrant version of themselves, where she's the resident human design expert and inner voice coach. She's a lover of fancy dinner parties, dancing at dive bars, laying by pools, and all things sparkly. But most of all, believes she's here to help others more deeply enjoy their lives. She's currently doing this by teaching people how to get in touch with their personal intuition and desires via human design readings, guides, and her latest offering of Sovereign and Satisfied, a 6-week group course for generators and manifesting generators who want to take their human design deeper and learn how to apply it to every aspect of creating their dream life. I think I'm a generator.
I think you are. I'm a manifesting generator.
So I guess that course would be for both of us. Mm-hmm. I forget what all the types are, but I'm certainly one of those.
You're going to get, I asked her to debrief them. So Excellent. You will hear that. And there's 5 different types and those are 2. So I hope you guys get a lot out of this and we will be back at the end. Hi, Sara.
Hi, Rachel.
I'm so excited to have someone on who can teach me something that I don't really know anything about, but that's been floating around in the ether around me for quite some time. Like my clients, Kristen and I both have a lot of clients who talk about human design. Mm-hmm. And as someone who loves like personality stuff, I kind of feel it's like a missing gap in my knowledge. Like I'm pretty into the Enneagram. Mm-hmm. I was into the Myers-Briggs years ago. I'm not as into astrology as I could be, but this just feels like I don't know anything about this. So I'm very excited to learn from you.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me. And I'm so excited. It's one of my favorite things ever to share this with people. And I also am the same where I'm like a personal growth / like personality test junkie. So but I really, really love human design personally. So I'm very ready.
I hope this kicks off like a new phase and a new obsession for me that I then like apply to everyone around me, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Whether or not I should, I'm like using it to assess everybody around me. So
yes.
before we dive in, I want to ask, because I don't know, how did you get into this? How did you get into human design?
So I left my corporate job a few years ago, like 3.5 years ago, and with not much more than like I can't do this. And I know I want to do something more purposeful with my life. I've always kind of had the overarching theme of wanting to help people or like be in like my undergrad was in psychology, and then I started to get my master's in marriage family therapy. So I've always been interested in like helping people heal and be the fullest versions of themselves. So I was kind of just trying to figure out once I left my job, like, okay, so what am I going to do? I have all these loose ideas, and just did a bunch of part-time jobs and was trying to figure things out. And then I was I was kind of having a lot of like spiritual awakenings and breakthroughs, and started getting more into like the worlds of manifestation and some law of attraction stuff. And similar to you, astrology kind of never has been one of my things that I've really clung on to or that's like really stood out to me. But I was listening to a podcast, it was the Expanded podcast, and Jenna Zoe was on it, and she's like a major human design person. And so when she started talking about it, it just really resonated with me. And then I wanted to, of course, like look up what my type was. And so once I did that, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so affirming and so validating. And then it's like the meta irony of human design is like, you're supposed to follow after the things that light you up. And so it was just the thing where I was like, I want to learn all the stuff about it. Like in true human design fashion, I was like, how can I absorb as much information about this as possible? And then when finally something came up about being trained to be a reader, I was like, that sounds so fun. Like, I'd love to be able to pass this information along to other people because it's been such a helpful tool for me. And so, so then I did that. And then my friend and I kind of started the business of high def humans together. And so that's where this fit in.
I don't think I knew that you started it with a friend like Kristen and I did.
Yes. Yeah. So it's kind of like a yay boo story where, but it totally worked out how it's supposed to, but we fully started it together. She's still 100% my best friend. She was going to be doing some like clarity coaching on that end. And then I was going to be doing human design. And then, we had plans to like add other practitioners. And she just had a kind of a change of heart, which I also was able to, from a human design perspective, to say, I totally get that. And I only want you to be here if it's exciting for you. And I'm really glad that you're listening to yourself on that. And so it wasn't, it's disappointing in some sense, just because I was like, oh, that was so fun to like build this together. And I loved working with you, but also it was very easy to just say like, no, this isn't, if it's not for you, it's not for you or for me then. And then I'll just keep going with this because I am still excited about it. So it's shifted. But it's, I'm still so thankful for what she did to help get things up and running.
Well, it might have been that you wouldn't have done it if you hadn't had someone to sort of work on it with. And then once you had that foundation, you felt like confident to keep going. So
it was so meant to be. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Okay. So I almost want to apologize for asking such a basic question, but we have to start here.
No, you have to. Yes.
We have to. So what the heck is human design, Sara?
I mean, you're definitely not alone. And so many people are still very like, what the heck? I've never heard of that. So human design, it is a newer modality of kind of like in the world of self-assessment tools or things that help you better understand yourself and people around you. And so human design is, it's the study of our energetic auras. So it tells us how we best process energy and like how we best optimize our energy and engage with opportunities. It like highlights our unique area or specific areas of giftedness and just kind of some themes in our life to really help illuminate kind of why we're here and what we can lean on of our own strengths to be able to live out like our purpose, for lack of a better word. And so it uses multiple different modalities that it kind of pulls from. So astrology is part of it because it all is based on the time and location of your birth. It uses the chakra system with our different energy centers, the I Ching, quantum physics, and then Kabbalah. So it uses knowledge and wisdom from a lot of ancient practices. But yeah, it only came about in like the 80s. And it actually, one of my favorite facts about it is that it was actually created for parents, because the idea was that since you knew from birth, like what you could determine what someone's human design was and their type, is that parents would use that information to really nurture their unique giftedness and ways of like interacting with the world and with others, so that they could be raised in a way that's true to them and not putting them in some kind of mold. Like, as we all know, like we are raised and shaped by parents and teachers who have their own expectations of the world. But not all advice is good advice for everyone. So I just love how this honors the individual and the uniqueness of each person. And I also feel like it gives us kind of a GPS to our own intuition and how to know how to tap into what's right for us or next steps. And it's also a really helpful roadmap. Like if you learn it later in life, which most people are, of course, it's kind of like a roadmap for how to decondition from the advice or things that the world has layered on us and get you back to your most authentic, most vibrant, unique self. So it is a really beautiful system and concept in general, because it really shows us how we're each uniquely wired and designed and created with like our own desires and preferences and ways of taking in information and approaching situations. And when we're all living into that fullness, then we get to complement one another. And like, ultimately that's how we would like heal the world and be this vibrant, thriving community. So it's really cool.
Kristen and I talk a lot about just so much of what we do is undoing. It's not really building up. It's just undoing everything that, isn't you. And so I love anything that can kind of help you figure out who that person is and how that person operates, because we're all wired in a slightly different way. And a lot of the time we don't realize how we're wired. And so we're comparing ourselves to the way other people operate or the expectations of us. And we're like, of course, our default is always to internalize it and go, what's wrong with me that I'm not like that, or that I can't show up like this. And these types of things, human design, so many things kind of shine a light on, oh, well, that's why. Like, oh, I'm normal. I just didn't realize that I was normal until right now. Normal for what this, this type is telling me anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Most people, what I love is like when people learn their design, it ends up being very validating for them, because it should be stuff that you already know to be true about yourself deep down, unless you're living like completely disconnected from yourself. But most people will be like, yeah, wow, that really resonates. And so it's that permission slip to like be your fullest self and not have to fit into anything else. Like even with the ways like a 9-to-5 work model is not going to work for every energy type. Like there's some people who do best working, which we can get into this later, but just for an example of like projectors, like they're not meant to put in these like long work hour days. Like they're meant to kind of spend time like reflecting and learning things and deepening their skills, and then do like a few hours of direct output. Whereas manifesting generators and generators have the energy to like go all day when they're doing things they love. So just even having that knowledge is like, wow, how beneficial if we all got to use this in our areas of work or life, etc.
So I know that there's a handful of possibilities, and I'm guessing that within that, it's not like all manifesting generators are the same. I'm sure that there's a lot of uniqueness between each of the major categories too. But I think obviously it would be helpful for you to walk us through what the possibilities are, broadly speaking.
Yes. So yeah, there's only 5 main types. So that does kind of simplify things there. And then it's like, there's millions and millions of possibilities of different nuances once you get into like the details of a chart. But I think even just knowing your type can be so hugely beneficial. And there's a lot of stuff online about it. So yeah, to break down what the 5 main types are. First, we have manifestors. And so manifestors make up about like 9 to 10% of the population. It's not what people think of when they think of the word manifestation or like manifestor. Like some people are like, so am I not able to manifest things because I'm not a manifestor? I'm like, no, that's not what this is. But they are at the head because they're the ones that are here to initiate things and get things started. So they're like wildly independent. They should not be corralled or controlled by other people. They're meant to get like these downloads of ideas or urges to do something or like intuitive hits, and then to run with it and then tell people around them like what their plans are, what they're planning on doing, but not ask permission. And then, so they're kind of the ones that like set everything into motion. And then the generators and manifesting generators are the next tier, and they make up like the majority of the population. And they're here to carry out the work. So they're here to respond to, let's say, an idea or like a kind of work or opportunity or whatnot that some of the manifestors have put into place and say, yes, that lights me up. That excites me. I want to say yes to that. And to go in those directions. And so those three types together are all energy beings, which means that when they're living in alignment with their type, they actually create more energy for themselves and the people around them. So it's to their benefit to stay in alignment of whether it's like, for manifestors, it's like to not be held back and to let themselves like run free with ideas or whatnot, because then, and each type has their own like not self, feelings that show up that tell you you're not in alignment. So for manifestors, that's anger. So if they're noticing that they're like these feelings of like anger are just popping up, like that's a good indicator that maybe they're being held back or they're being restrained. And then for generators and manifesting generators, their not self is frustration. And so if there's this sense of like, to me, that how that shows up, because I'm a manifesting generator like you, is the feeling of like, I'd rather be doing something else with my time. Like it's a frustration of energy in your body. So
that's funny. Yes.
Really, does that resonate?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's like, for example, with my last job, it was just like, I'm sitting all day at this job that is okay, but it's not lighting me up. And I'm like, gosh, there's so many other things I could be doing with my time right now that feel like a better use of who I am and my gifts, or even just like a better use of my time. Like this to me is not utilizing the best of me. And so that means my company's not even getting the best of me either. So the goal is to kind of like move towards things that feel like a satisfying use of your energy. And that's how you'll get to like keep generating that energy for yourself and others. And so then we move to the non-energy beings, which are the projectors. So they're like about somewhere in like the 20 to 30% of the population. And they are like they have like a bird's eye view kind of like what's going on. And they're here to be these almost like wise, like leaders or guides, and to help tweak and transmute and improve the energy that's already here, or the things that are already here. So they typically are known for having like inherent giftedness around like understanding systems or seeing how things could be done in more efficient ways, or how to better allocate resources. Like I think the best example, they say that the projectors will be like the new CEOs, because they would do well at the middle of a company saying like, you know, okay, you generators and manifesting generators, like you should be the project managers because you get to like interact with clients or do all the things that you love, and you people should do this. And like, it's almost like to me, it's a feminine, it's a balancing of like from the masculine of that really driving, like everyone has to be at the office from these hours. Doesn't matter if you don't want to, or it doesn't feel right for you, just do it because you're supposed to a more like nurturing, like how do we nurture everyone nourish everyone in the process of this and make the best experience for everyone. So one of the gifts of COVID, I think, is like so many companies are now realizing like, okay, I guess people can work from home and still survive. And like, we still get stuff done. And it's like, not everyone works best at the same hours every day. And like, maybe if you let people rest longer in the morning or like, you know, have a long break in the afternoon, we might actually get more things accomplished, or like use the better, like sides of their gifts or whatnot. So projectors are really here to like kind of guide us and improve the things that we're doing. And then the reflectors are the last type, and they're the most rare. They're only like 1% of the population. And they have the completely open centers. And so it's just like their name. They're here to essentially reflect back and mirror back to us how the rest of us are doing on a individual and like community, soul, and health level. Like they're almost like a little litmus test. So like if you were to put a reflector child, let's say in like a really stressful school situation, and it's like, you know, really like mean teacher, or the kids are mean or whatnot, like they would really reflect, like they would take on those characteristics a lot. Like you'd sense that they're really agitated and they're physically unhealthy and all of that. And so the idea is that they get to show us like what areas we need to improve in and like how we're doing. But they can do anything. Like that sounds like they're these mythical like unicorns that live up in the like that are shamans in a village somewhere, but they actually like can do whatever jobs or things that they want, but they just to have that awareness that they have these really open centers and to be protective of that, but also know what a gift they are is really cool. So the idea is that we would all be living into those roles, for lack of a better word, so that we could be in this system that really functions beautifully and carries out the work in joyful ways, and then is improving society as we go, and like checking in on our health and how we're doing along the way.
So I might selfishly be asking this, but I'm curious a little bit more about the difference between like a generator and a manifesting generator, especially since like manifesting generator sounds like it's a combo of manifestor and generator, which it might not be. It might be its own thing.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. They're the newest type. It is a hybrid between the two, but they still fall under the generator category. So they're
like
pretty
a subcategory or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So the difference between a manifesting generator and a generator is kind of just that the manifesting generators can sometimes, they're known for being more like multi-passionate, and that they hop around to different things and they have like multiple things that excite them. It doesn't mean that generators wouldn't have that too, but generators tend to be a little bit more like single focused on things, whereas the manifesting generators would be like a Jessica Alba or a Gwyneth Paltrow, who's like they're an actress and then they start a wellness brand and and
like a multi-hyphenate kind of person or something. Yeah.
And they move a little bit quicker, like with the ways that they approach things or whatnot, because of the manifestor side. So, but they have the generators and MGs have like the same strategy, not self and signature. So a lot of times they're kind of like lumped together.
Okay. So I don't know how to ask this next question, but I'm going to just try. And then I'm sure you can translate it into something that makes sense in human design. But I'm guessing that each of them probably make decisions differently or process thoughts differently. So I think that would be an interesting thing to cover, because I get the sense that that's probably the case. And I think that's probably going to be relevant to a lot of the people listening is I don't make decisions the same way, or I don't process information the same way as other people. So how would you speak to that?
So a couple things. I would say like each of the types utilizing their strategy is kind of how they determine
okay, maybe we need to know more about the strategy.
Yeah, so I could like go through the strategies of each one, and then there's also something called authority. So everyone has an authority, and that's how you best make decisions. So
cool.
That's another way that I would say like it's how we best process things, is knowing your strategy and authority is like what the go-to
let's go there.
is. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So strategies for manifestors, that's to inform. So as I mentioned, like they're meant to just go after things and like take charge and whatnot. But because they have sort of this intense energy, and that can be a little like off-putting to people, or they're not sure which direction they're going to go in, it's to their benefit to kind of inform and share, enlighten people what their plans are, to like almost diffuse any tension that might come up with them just like running in their own direction. And so that for them is just important to like keep open lines of communication. So that's kind of how they would best, like if they get an idea to do something, it's like, okay, here, like sharing with whether it's like a partner or a business partner or people at work, like I have this idea, I want to run with it. Here's what I'm going to do. Or like as they're going and doing that, so that other people can be aware. And then for generators and MGs, our strategy is to respond. And so this is how we best like approach opportunities. And it's essentially just checking in with our sacral response, which is like that gut / like, it's truly like the gut feeling of like, or the butterflies. It's like where our reproductive area is, like where we birth new things and ideas, and that creative sense of like anything that comes along our path is a chance to respond to, like any stimuli. And so it's just saying, like, does this light me up and excite me? Do I want to learn more? Do I want to move in that direction? Or do I not? Like, is it not exciting? So even someone asking you, like, do you want to go to dinner tonight? Checking in with that sacral response and being like, yes, that sounds so fun. I'd love to get out of the house. Or if it's kind of like, no, I just feel like staying in tonight. Like that's your response. Like that's how you decide what's right for you. And so to loop back to my example of human design, it was like that was my response of saying yes to human design. Like I wanted to keep learning more about it. Like I said yes when I saw the opportunity to do the teacher or the reader training because it was exciting me. And so it's like teaching people to get into their bodies and out of the shoulds of their mind, because then it's like my mind could come up with a lot of excuses for why I should or shouldn't want to do something. But if I trust that sacral response is leading me to exactly what's right for me and what I technically have enough energy to follow through with, then that's all that matters.
Is it right to, I have a question about this, not to derail because we'll get back to, but, but I am curious that like, it sounds like I've heard someone else talk about this and I don't know if this is true. So I feel like I'm going to come to you for confirmation of this or not. But it sounds like what you might be saying is that it's hard. And this is how I feel about myself, is that sometimes it's hard to just invent an idea or invent an opportunity and then go with it. And if you're a manifesting generator or a generator, it's so much easier to respond to what's showing up in front of you. Yes. And it's that almost feels a little bit more feminine to me, like a little bit less masculine. Like I'm going to like almost like on Hinge, for example, I'm using dating app analogies right now. Love it. I mean, it's almost like, okay, I'm going to like, I feel like you could go in with like a strategy and you're like, all right, I'm going to like message 10 people a day. And it's like, I'm making this happen, right? Like I am creating something out of nothing, as opposed to I am going to sit back and respond to, mostly respond to what I receive as opposed to be on the hunt. Is that oversimplifying it, or am I on to something? No. And I'm actually so glad you said that, because that is such an important thing. And when I first learned about the strategy of responding, there was almost like an initial disappointment of like, well, it feels passive or something. Exactly. It feels passive. Like, am I just supposed to sit around and like wait for like an opportunity to drop out of the sky before I can respond? But you can, number one, you can use it in a way that makes it more proactive. But I learned to see it as something that was really freeing, because like you said, I think I was trying to really force ideas, or I was like, I need to like get this clarity on this thing, instead of just knowing like, no, I'll be guided to what's right by just paying attention to that. Like if I can just sit back and say like, when was the last time I was excited by something? Or when was like, how do I feel in this moment about doing this task or this, these social plans or whatnot? Like, that just gets to be my answer and like my next right step, instead of forcing something out of nothing. So I actually love it now. And I think it's such a helpful tool to know that for yourself. I prefer it too. Like, I don't want to be responsible for inventing everything and creating all of the opportunities. Like so that stressful. To me sounds exhausting, but for which type would be the one who would be excited by that? Manifestors. Right. So it's like, I don't want to be that. Like that's, no. That sounds, I mean, I can do it every once in a while. Every once in a while, something like that happens. But again, it's not because I created it. It's because the idea came to me and then I responded with a gut yes to it. Yes. Like I didn't chase it down. Very rarely am I chasing things down. And honestly, I get myself into trouble when I start doing that. I know. And so it's so freeing. I love that you recognize that, because I think that's a really a key thing for generators and manifesting generators. Okay. And there's a lot of us, so I don't feel too bad about taking it in that direction, because I'm sure other people are going to get something out of that. Okay. So what's the strategy for projectors then? So projectors is wait for the invitation. So this one, it definitely comes across as very passive, and a lot of them feel resistance to this at first. But what that means for them is that they're meant to focus on like their natural inherent areas of giftedness. And like, let's say for instance,
someone is like really good at personal finance stuff. I don't know if you've heard of her first 100K on Instagram, but I've been following her. Okay. So she does a lot of personal finance. She's kind of like blowing up. So she's taught herself, I mean, her parents did too, but about how to invest, like all these different things around personal finance. So for her, I don't know if she's a projector. I'm just using this as an example, but for her, that would look like getting very clear that she obviously is gifted in that area. And she's shown that in her own life. And she starts to like share that knowledge with others. And then she starts sharing it on social media because she's like, I'm confident I know about this. And like, I love taking the time to learn about it. And so so their signature is success, because when someone then like comes to them and is like, wow, I can clearly see that you're gifted at personal finance. Can you teach me how to do that in my own life? Like, can I buy your course? Can I do that? That's someone inviting their knowledge out of them and literally offering them payment for it, like an energetic exchange. So she's getting to gift her knowledge and to them, and they're paying for it. And so that's like this symbiotic relationship. So they do, because they like have these, maybe more intuitive, or not intuitive, but like, they might have more, I can't think of the word, but like just a better way of going about something. They can tend to want to like interject where maybe they're not welcome, or where that knowledge is not welcome. And so their not self is bitterness. And that really resonates for projectors, because it's almost a sense of like, wow, you're totally doing that wrong. If only I could just show you how to like format that Google Doc right now. And if the person is not inviting that information out of them, it's not going to go over well, because they're like, I didn't ask for your help. Like, and so then they feel the sense of bitterness. Like, how can you not see that I know how to do this so much better? And like,
oh my God, I'm thinking of some of my clients right now. Yeah. This is like their hang up. I'm like, oh, yes. These are projectors. Probably. Gotcha.
Probably. So it's really to their benefit if they notice that feeling of bitterness, to say like, okay, where can I pivot and like redirect my energy back to myself, of like, just double down on my gifts and like honing those and sharing the things I'm confident about, and then trust that the people who are looking for that will then see me or find me or invite that out of me. And that's the sweet spot that they're going for.
So I'm wondering what the difference is between waiting for the invitation as a projector and responding, which it feels like those seem like almost synonymous, like for generators and manifesting generators. But here's what I heard, and I have no idea if I'm right, so correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay. Yeah.
But what I kind of heard was that a projector has a pretty strong sense of what their gifts are, what they're, like what they enjoy, where their talents lie. And their issue is more so in how to share it. Whereas a generator or a manifesting generator might not always know the answer to that. They might be like, honestly, maybe my gifts might not be so easy to pin down, and they might be more, I don't know, maybe more mutable. And it might be more like, truly, I have to follow my gut in any given moment to know where I'm supposed to be. Whereas a projector might kind of always know where they're supposed to be. And that I have no idea if that's right. Tell me that I'm wrong.
No, I think you did a really good job explaining that. Yeah, because for the generators and manifesting generators, our strategy is telling us where to direct our energy towards. And like, so that's giving us direction to like, what is our purpose? Like, what are the things that we're meant to be doing in any given moment or overall in life? Whereas the projectors kind of already like, yeah, they'll know probably from themselves, like what growing up came easiest to me, like what type of things can I do in my sleep? Like, what are the things that people naturally come to me for? And, or like what industry or like area do I see, like I want to improve in like a new and different way. And then it's kind of then focusing on those and then having people invite that specific type of expertise or knowledge out of them.
This explains a lot about why I think some of the people I know, probably generators and manifesting generators, get frustrated in career because they're like, well, I don't know what my passion is. And I'm like, Kristen and I have a whole, theory on that I don't need to get into right now. But I think it explains a lot about, it might not be one thing. It might be that you're meant to show up, in any given moment in a way that feels energetically aligned, and then trust that whatever flows from that is the right thing for you to be focusing on right now. And you might not be able to boil that down into a convenient little label and call it, here's my passion, which maybe a manifestor or a projector could do.
Yeah, I think that's super true. And I am with you on the fact that like we put so much, it's something that I've really released of like trying to figure out like what my passion is or purpose or whatnot, because I'm like, it's just anything that you want to do next. Like that is my purpose right now. It's just like, what are the desires in me? Are they silly? Are they big? Are they small? Is it whatever? Like, and that's just all that I need to focus on.
So, okay. What's the strategy for a reflector?
So they're so unique and interesting. So their strategy is to wait a lunar cycle, which
that's so random compared to some of the others.
I know it's very esoteric. Like everyone else is like clear and what to the point, but that's just the beauty.
Well, I don't know. A lunar cycle is 28 days, right? I mean, like that's actually pretty concrete. But continue. Tell me what that means.
Exactly. So because all the other beings are solar, like they operate like on a 24-hour schedule with this, but then reflectors they're on a lunar schedule. So because they don't have any centers lit up basically by the sun, like they're meant to live out kind of like different chapters or themes of their life, like over a 28-day period, and then make decisions from that. So it's kind of like, I don't even know any reflectors personally, so it's hard for me to even explain what this would look like. Yeah, I know some like influencers who are reflectors, and like Sandra Bullock is allegedly a reflector, but
I guess that would make you a good actor.
Yeah, like you could take on all these different identities and characters and whatnot. But what it really means is kind of just they work on a different schedule than the rest of the world. So they're meant to move at their own pace. They don't have to rush their way through decisions or chapters. They're meant to kind of like let things play out and see how they feel in any given cycle or
interesting
like thing that they're doing or whatnot, and then make decisions on where to go next. Like, so they're not self as disappointment. So they're trying to avoid like these feelings of monotony and being like bored or disappointed or left out of things. And their signature is surprise. So they're meant to like sample different things and be in new environments and things that feel good to them. So they're always kind of like sampling to see like, does this feel right for me? Does this feel good? Am I staying like inspired and excited? So yeah, they just move through the world in such a different way than the other types.
That does make sense to me though, that you might need like a full sort of month to maybe cycle through, every up and down or every emotion or every almost like hormonal phase as a woman that you might go through in those 4 weeks, and then synthesize everything and then make a decision.
Yeah. So it's not for little decisions, of course, like what to have for breakfast, like wait 28 days to decide. It's more of like those, like if you're switching seasons in life, they might not be able to just be like, yes, I feel clear that I want this career change. It's like, let's like really feel through this and go through, at least give yourself some time. And then that clarity kind of emerges for them over that period.
So then what's the difference between your strategy and your authority?
So the strategies are tied to your type. So there's the 5 types that we talked about. And then the authorities, some of them are kind of tied to your type because they have to do with certain energy centers that are lit up or not. But there's, there's 7 authorities. I would say there's only probably like 3 that I see on like a very recurring basis. So there's ones that really show up a lot. And then there's some that are a little bit more rare. So I don't have to describe all of them, but basically to give an example, actually, let me see, what was yours? Okay. So you and I both have emotional authority. So that means that we have a defined solar plexus, and that's where the emotions live. And while it sounds like we might be more emotional people, we actually, because we have a defined center there, we're the ones that kind of set the emotional tone for others. So we already have these like set emotional waves in us. We experience highs and lows, but we're not going to be as susceptible to picking up and amplifying the emotions of people around us. So it's actually people with undefined emotional centers that can tend to present more emotional because they're like the really like sensitive and empathic ones, if they don't have like an awareness around protecting that. So how that relates to authority for us in making decisions is that because we have these waves and like we might have moments of like highs or lows, it's to our benefit to usually give ourselves like 24 hours before making a big decision or letting those waves, quote unquote, settle and like just make decisions from a grounded place. So we're typically still going to make decisions from that sacral response, which there is a sacral authority on its own, and those tend to be right a lot of times, but it's kind of like for bigger decisions. I look at it as like this backed power of clarity of like, okay, I feel like this is what I'm supposed to do, but just in case I'm like hyped up right now, or I'm like in a weird melancholy state, let's just ride this out and make sure that over the next 24 hours or however long, like when I feel calm and grounded, that this still feels right for me, and I'll check back in, and then like knowing from there.
Yeah. I mean, I experienced that, I think in like, I usually know what I want to do and I've already made a decision before the rest of me is caught up. And it's almost like you need to let the rest of you catch up so that like before you just kind of go with what you can't even articulate it yet sometimes. Like it's almost like I need to wait until I can articulate why I'm wanted or why I'm going to do it.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Okay. And so then, that's a little confusing because we have an emotional authority. Another one of the big ones I think is sacral authority, which is different than the fact that generators and manifesting generators often make, respond from a place of like their sacral center, right?
It is actually, it's just pretty much the same thing. So like if I'm doing a reading for someone with a sacral authority for a manifesting generator, I don't need to spend much time on it because I'll have just gone through the fact of like what it means to respond to something.
Right, it's like doubling down on what we just learned.
So it's very like centric to their type. And so that's just how they make decisions, is all they have to do is check in with that gut response and say like, is this a yes for me or is this a no? So that's an easy one.
Okay, got you. And then you said there was like 3 big ones. What's the other big one?
Another big one is splenic authority. And so that
like is your spleen?
Your spleen. Yeah, it's tied to your spleen. And so that's the center that's, it's like our fear type thing, and a really intuitive, like quick intuitive hits. So it's almost like a physiological knowing in your body. So it's like about really getting still and like listening, and for these quick cues that come in and knowing that they only come in like once typically, and then they're gone. So it's listening for like, go this way, say this, like, I don't have this authority, but I think an example is like one time I was on a hike and I just like got this like almost like a knowing sense that I wasn't supposed to keep going in this one direction. And so then I was like, okay, I don't know why, but it just feels off. And so I like turned around and went another way. And even though I'm not very clear about why I wasn't supposed to do that, it was just like, when you just get those,
I'm sure you had a reason.
Like this, there was something. I just know that like there was something in my body that was like, but it wasn't this like gut feeling, or it wasn't like I saw something like that I responded to. It's just like something's off. And so, so people with splenic is like, they're going to be very intuitive people as long as they're staying grounded and like connected to that, those intuitive senses in their body.
So because so many people are manifesting generators or generators, right? Like that's a pretty big portion of the population, right?
Yeah. It's the majority.
And because having sacral authority is also pretty common, it sounds like, even if you could, I'm sure you could be a manifestor who had sacral authority, right?
No, you can't actually. So that's where, and that way, I mean, it gets kind of nuanced because it has to do with like the tenets of what make up a manifestor, is that certain centers are either lit up or not. And so you can't be a manifestor with a sacral response or sacral center lit up, because then you'd be a generator, or you'd be a manifesting generator.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Nonetheless, I'm still asking question for all the generators and manifesting generators out there.
Yes, I love it.
But also I think this is relevant because it's not like this doesn't apply to other people too. Even if we're not talking about human design, I'm curious to hear your take about, because I know there are people listening to this who are like, well, but how do I know what a yes feels like? Right. Or how do I get clear on what a yes feels like to me? Like, how do I tap into my gut and go, okay, yes, that is like, I do want to lean into that. I do want to say yes to that. Because there's some people who maybe are disconnected from that and they're up in their head, even if their natural tendency is to be in their gut.
So I have a few ways of describing that. Is I think, so describing like a sacral yes versus a no, is the yes is going to feel like an expansiveness in your body, like an opening, almost like a moving towards, like you want to move in that direction. It's like a buzzing kind of energy. I associate it with the word fun a lot. So in my mind, it's like anytime I find myself saying like, oh, that sounds so fun to me, or like that sounds like something I really want to do. And it is that full body yes, kind of like in a just like an excitement and a knowing. A no feels like this it's more constrictive. Like to me, I physically feel like I want to like turn away, or like even let's say someone asked me, like texted me a question and I'm like avoiding responding. It's like literally like turning my phone upside down and putting it away because I don't want to say like, I don't want to say no. It's like paying attention to things where it's like, what makes you kind of go like, oh, no, that doesn't sound fun. Or no, I really don't feel like doing that. Or the things that you're like really pulled towards. And I always tell people to start really small and practice on little things. Like if you're someone who isn't super in touch with their bodies or intuition, I mean, food might be a tough one just because that's a whole other beast, but like it does really well with binary options. So like giving yourself a this or that option or a yes or no, and just checking in and saying like trying it on almost like I kind of play out the decision. So let's say someone invites you to go out one night, and it's someone that you love, like normally you love hanging out with them, and they ask you, but something in you is like, oh, gosh, I don't know. Like I've had a really full day. There's some other stuff I'd sort of like to be doing. Like, and you think about if you were to go out with them, like, would that be the best use of your energy and your day and all of that? Or you think of how it would feel if you like said no, and then you stayed home and you got to do what you wanted to do. And when you can feel that kind of like, oh yeah, that sounds way better. Or like, I know I'll have relief when I say no, then that's a good way to like, just check in and try it on little things.
I love that. I mean, yes. I mean, we often want to go from I'm blocked and I don't know what I want to I am some magnificent intuitive creature who knows exactly who she is and what she wants at all moments. And it's like, maybe don't give yourself whiplash in trying to stretch that far, that quickly. And yet work on things that you're not as attached to.
Yeah. Like not having to apply it to your next big life decision, because there are like, I mean, yeah, like choosing a career, like I still think though, we know the answers to things. And it's just, even though it's such a simple concept, I have so much grace for myself and others because we live in a world that it does not make it easy to just say like yes to the thing that makes us excited. There's a million reasons why we'd be told that that's not like smart or wise or whatnot. And I even think back to like relationships I've been in romantically where I knew the answer deep down. Like I knew like if it's just not supposed to keep going.
We could have a whole conversation about entering into relationships that were a sacral no from the first second and then being in it for 2 years. Like that was my pattern.
Amen.
No thanks.
I'm kind of curious, or I'm starting to get more into like wanting to apply human design to dating topics.
I think you
that's
should.
Something I might start doing, because for a while I've been focused on like the career sides of it, but I actually think it's wildly beneficial to like learn the things about yourself when it comes to dating, because that makes a huge difference too.
I know nothing about human design as established, but I think I've been doing this without intentionally realizing I've been doing it, like in the dating realm of being very sure to, I'm only going to engage with things that feel like a full body yes.
I love that. Good
there are so many things in the dating. I have a totally different podcast about my journey through the ups and downs of singledom.
Yes,
and
love it.
It's a mini series. So it's just like almost like a memoir. And anyway, that I think is a lot of women's problem, just to take a little dating tangent here for a second, is that we might have a very strong full body yes or no to someone or something, but this sort of shame and I think the limiting beliefs of, well, you can't have it all. And, like you should give this person a chance, right?
I was just going to say that.
We are totally encouraged to shut down that sacral yes. Or that sacral no. And that I could have a whole like rant about just that alone.
Oh yeah, girl. Cause being single for like 5 years now, that's been a big part of my journey. And so, I have so many things of like stuff people say to me, and like for a while, like why it would rub me the wrong way, like you're too picky or like just do this or whatnot. And it's like now I get to say confidently, it's like, no, I'm actually just listening to what's right for me, and I'm not gonna like continue to go on dates because I feel like that's the right thing to do with that person. Like I took a solid chunk of time off from dating in general and the apps and all that, just because the thought of it lit me up 0%. I was like, I'm not interested. I'm interested in these other things. Like, so I'm not going to, force something that's not. And it wasn't until I was like, oh, actually it does sound kind of fun to like start talking to people again or put myself out there or whatnot. And I just feel like, so many women feel like they have to be in the dating game or like force themselves to do things that they don't want to do. And I would love if people could use this to like free themselves up in those ways.
Well, because to kind of go back to one of the original things that you said, you create, if you're one of these energy being types, right? Like you create more energy when you are aligned with your type, which actually I just think is true of how the universe operates. Like energy begets energy. If you're aligned, you're going to increase your momentum just in every area of your life. That's just how it works. So if you're shutting down, you know, your gut in a dating sense or in a career sense or anyway, you're actually getting further and further away from what you actually want. Like you shutting down that yes, or that sacral yes or no or whatever is just you getting further away. And so it doesn't serve you anyway to do it like that.
That's so true. I love that analogy.
Okay. I love that. Please get more into human design and dating, because we could have a whole separate conversation about that for sure.
I am on it. Yeah. No,
okay,
good. It's something I've been wanting to do more of for sure.
Okay, great. So I think like one last, I mean, I could talk to you about this forever, and I want to give you an opportunity to tell anything that I haven't asked, that I haven't had that I just don't know to ask you. But one question I still have to ask you is, I'm assuming that each type probably has their hangups, right? And you kind of talked about that. You've talked about sort of the not self, which I think is a funny way to say it, of like frustration or disappointment or anger or whatever. But are there any other ways to sort of identify your hangups depending on your type, or like things that you might commonly struggle with depending on your type?
Well, the not self is a huge one. And then I think I like to go over people's undefined centers. So that's like the centers that are white in their chart, because sometimes not having awareness around, there's not like that. It's not a bad thing to have an undefined center versus a defined one. It just means that like you could be more susceptible to certain things. So I think knowing what your undefined centers are can be really helpful to just have that awareness. So to give an example, like I have an undefined heart center or ego center, which is pretty common. Let me see, actually a few. No, yours is defined.
Okay.
So to use this back to a dating analogy, when that center is undefined, it can sometimes present as like this need to prove yourself in the world or to compete and to like show up in certain ways, whether that's in work or relationships. No one has ever made this connection, so I'm not saying this is like accurate, but to me, it's almost like the anxious attachment correlation of like, which I resonate with really deeply. And so there was this sense where a time like where I felt like I had to really strive to like get someone's attention or try to, like change their mind about things instead of, so knowing that I've done other work around like healing and releasing that. But now that when I saw that correlation to the undefined heart center, I was like, wow, that makes so much sense. And like the antidote is kind of like just believing and trusting that you are worthy as you are. And that worthiness is just going to present itself when you're living into who you're supposed to be. And you don't have to worry about like winning anyone over. So I think that knowing your undefined centers can be really helpful, like relationally. It almost, because that's kind of like the Enneagram is like, the stuff like where you go in stress, or like, it's kind of more of a relational tool. And so I think the undefined centers is like something that can be really helpful in relationships, like what people who amplify emotions more, like just how to create better boundaries for yourself and all that. Okay. So that's one way I would say.
So, okay. I mean, I'm looking at my chart right now, and this is why we need people to read our chart for us, because this might as well be written in Russian. Do you know what I mean? Like, I have no idea what any of this means. It would take a while to figure this out on your own. Like, you need someone who studied it, I think.
I agree. Well, and so that's, when you said like, if there's anything else or you don't know what to ask, is one thing I just would want to encourage people in is, because I hear that all the time, is people, they look up their chart and then they literally just like close it out and are like, goodbye, this is so weird. Like,
right. And exactly.
my heart for people would be that like, even just knowing your type, like I'm going to try to do a series where it's like how to read your chart in 60 seconds and then know where to go from there, because there's actually so much value that can be gleaned from just knowing your type and like the details of that. And there's tons of free information out there online. So I think depending on where you're at in your journey, or like how much you want to use this information in your life, like you don't have to shut it down without like getting a full reading from someone. And like, you might be someone who's like, oh, I just need to know my type. And then that will be really helpful. And I can just kind of use that in day-to-day life. or if it is something where you're like, wow, I really want to go deep and learn all the nuances of my chart and blah, 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 then yes, probably like getting a guide or a reading would be helpful for that person. But I just don't want people to it's not as complicated as it might seem. Like at first look, if you want to dive in, there's ways to do that and ways that are like approachable and digestible, that have nothing to do with you understanding like what this circuit board looks like.
I mean, really, it does. It looks like a really complicated game of Operation that you used to play when we were little.
So many good memories. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, but obviously one option they have is they could follow you and they could check you out. So where can they find and interact with you if they would like to learn more from you, Sara?
Yeah. So I'm at High Def Humans. It's HI Def Humans. That's like my website's name. And then that's also, which I'll have. So on my website, like if you go to What is Human Design on there, it links to a place that you can find your chart. And so it's free, totally free. You just plug in you do have to have your exact birth time. So that's really important, and your birth date and location. And then it will pump out your chart. And then you can come back to that page and it will give you a high level description of what your type means and your authority. So even that just like should be a basis of information. And then, I share more human design related content on my Instagram, which is High Def Humans. And that's pretty much it for where I am online.
I also just love the play of human design and high def.
Yes, I know. That was all my friend Jessie. She like had that idea and like how it works together, like HD and HD. It's just great.
I love it. Well, I this is so helpful. And I honestly, I'm like thinking about this for you and for me in a dating context now. That's just where my brain is at, like with what I've been working on lately. So I'm just like, I'm encouraging you to dive into that, because we really need to do that.
This is the sign that I needed, or like the motivator, because we should connect on any other channels about this, because I would love to keep talking about that.
Yeah. Okay. That sounds awesome. I will link to your site and your Instagram in case people just want to go to the show notes and click over. I will make sure that they have that.
Great.
But this was so fun. I'm so glad to have met you. We met through we have a mutual client who hooked us up. So I love that.
Yes, I know. Me too. Yeah, she's great. And I'm so glad that she connected us as well, and that we're doing really like similar work in the world of like helping people, get clear on their dreams and move in that direction.
Which is probably like a manifesting generator thing to do, I would assume. But
one of our many passions.
All right, Sara. Well, this was awesome. And thank you. And we will talk soon.
Yes. Thanks for having me, Rachel.
Bye.
Bye.
So there you go. If you are one of those people who loves these kinds of assessments and ways of looking into who you are, a whole new avenue to go down the rabbit hole, which I think this is one where you really could go deep down into the rabbit hole. So if you're one of those people, enjoy. You're welcome.
And go follow Sara and check out her work at High Def Humans. And we will see you. Well, we'll see you twice next week, because we're not even halfway through Forever Alone. That's coming out next Wednesday, chapter 3. Hey, I am never going to find love. So you know what I guess I'll do instead? Build a career. That'll make it better. That chapter.
I'm sure no one
you feature heavily in this chapter.
Well, since we did kind of do the career thing simultaneously, makes sense.
Oh, I also talk about multiple of your ex-boyfriends in that chapter.
Fun. The joys of hearing it after the fact.
I gave them both bad nicknames because they deserved it.
If it's the two I'm thinking of, they do. Yeah, they definitely do deserve it.
So anyway, you can look forward to that on Wednesday. And then next Friday, we'll have a new Dear Rachel.
Okay, we'll see you then.
Bye.